Give me your hands! Give me your hands! Down! Oh, get down!
Finley, is that you?
Good girl. Like glasses too.
What you want?
You and your friends can leave now. Now I'll count to 3.
Okay?
How am I supposed to get ahead? And I'm just having a bad day. Police! Don't move!
Hands.
I have to wait. You're under.
I'll give you to the count of 3.
Let's go!
When I asked, you've been here.
Richard's first episode opens with the guy being shot and murdered in Margrave, Georgia. Gloves and other protective gear are on the shooter. Even though the victim is already dead, he picks up the casings and beats his corpse. When he's done, he wraps a piece of cardboard over the body. Alan Richardson's character Jack Reacher walks to Margrave diner after getting off a bus. A man insults his girlfriend for the large tip she left as he approaches the door and leaves. Jack remains silent as he observes the man. He keeps doing this until the man is sufficiently frightened to admit that he had a rough day and that it won't happen again. He receives a peach pie and black coffee once he is inside. Jack is about to bite into the pie when he hears siren from the cops outside. He cooperates with the local police officers and leaves a tip since he knows they are going to arrest him. Jack is informed that he has been arrested for murder. When he arrives at the station, Willa Fitzgerald's character Roscoe Conklin instructs him to approach her so she can process him. Sasquatch doesn't talk according to one cop, but they did discover a passport on him. Roscoe obtains the information she requires by using the passport. They also discovered an army medal of some kind and around $200 on him. According to Roscoe, it's a French World War II medal. Oscar Finlay, Malcolm Goodwin ask how they plan to get him to talk, and they threaten to put him in a holding cell. Please take him to the meeting room, Oscar requests. There he greets Jack and identifies himself as Oscar Finlay, chief detective. Oscar informs him about the cops discovered by the highway embankment close to an overpass after he has confirmed that he has been informed of his rights. Jack finds out that the back of the skull was hit by 2 close-range 9mm 95 grain bullets. The victim was a large man in his 30s who suffered severe post-mortem beatings. The corpse was so severely bloated that they were unable to get fingerprints. A silencer was used, he informs Oscar. The shooter was probably not a novice because he was astute enough to pick up his casing. It was someone who understood how to carry out a silent, efficient murder. Because he mutilated the body after death, Jack surmises that the individual is insane. He then presents his explanation as to why there were 3 persons involved and how one of them just covered the body with debris since they were in a hurry to go. Oscar acknowledges that it's an intriguing notion, but Jack still fits the description of the person who was seen earlier today strolling down the roadway near the body. When Jack got off the bus in Tampa and headed into town, he affirmed that it was him. According to Oscar, there isn't a bus stop in Margrave.
Criminal activity. The victim is.
Regulations.
What's going on?
Your sentences are more concerned with their swap. A human in here, your currency.
Because Blind Blake, the blues singer, is said to have passed away in Margrave a long time ago, Jack adds he requested the driver to do him a favor. Since Blake enjoys music, Jack thought he would drop over and find out more. Before Oscar reveals that the medical examiner estimated the victim's time of death to be approximately midnight yesterday night, they talk about Jack's final 24 hours. Richard declines Oscar's invitation to accompany him until he takes off the zip ties. Jack tears them off on his own after Oscar gives in and asks Roscoe to get the box cutter. Asking whether they recycle, he scoops them up. Oscar leads him outdoors for a conversation. Jack claims that when he wants someone to believe him, when they shouldn't, he treats them like a human rather than a criminal. Oscar maintains that he is only seeking information and has no hidden agenda. He inquires about Harbour, the banker. Jack believes he has been exonerated after learning that he confessed to the crimes, but Oscar disputes this. According to Oscar, Paul confessed to things that never happened. Before Jack and Paul are taken on a prisoner bus, he tells Roscoe that it was a pleasure speaking with her. Paul praises Jack for the watch as they ride along. Paul ruins his vacation here, so he tells him to stop talking. Officer Spivey. Paul praises Jack for the watch as they ride along. Paul ruins his vacation here, so he tells him to stop talking. Officer Spivey, Patrick Garrow, greets them when they go to the prison and informs them that they will be kept apart from the animal factory until a weekend arrangement can be arranged for them. Jack has to wear a special sweater because of his size when they change. Jack responds that sweeping strip search rules are unlawful unless there is a clear and articulable suspicion of criminal behavior. Notwithstanding Spivey's attempts to convince them to bend over and spread their cheeks, a 4x6-inch pistol that couldn't fit inside somebody without sending them to the hospital killed the victim he is suspected of killing. Unless he wants to attempt and get hurt badly, Jack advises him to check the box on his clipboard. Paul and Jack are led to their cell after Spivey checks the box, and Paul apologizes for putting him in this situation. Again, he orders him to stop talking. When their cell door opens in the morning, Jack goes outside and takes a brief glance around. Jack claims that rather than the men awaiting arraignment, they have been put with the lifers, since they are probably trading smokes, food, and other things to have the first crack at him. Jack advises him to be worried about their exchanges. Paul is instructed to conserve his strength since he will require it. One of the prisoners orders Paul to surrender his shoes as a number of other prisoners approach the cell. When he does, the prisoner requests his spectacles. Paul gives them to them. The prisoner crashes them beneath the heels of his shoe after dropping them to the ground and spitting on them. Jack leaps down when the prisoner starts unzipping his pants and begs for one more item. He reminds the prisoner that he did not request his consent. Jack starts counting down as soon as they have 3 seconds to depart. Jack borrows a pair of sunglasses from one of his pals and swiftly deals with the bully. Paul, who is afraid of being alone himself, follows Jack when he goes to use the toilet. Shortly after using the toilet, a small group of prisoners who are attempting to make problems approach them. Jack tells them that if they knew what was about to happen to them, they would flee. One of the prisoners has a shank. He starts assaulting them far earlier than the count of 3. Guards arrive as soon as Jack tends to them. Before the warden notices, a guard tries to relocate them and inquires as to why they are here. He directs them to claim to have been here the entire time before moving them to another area.
I don't give a shit.
Just left. He could have been in Margrave in time to kill anyone. It was over. Got that video within the cracks and...
So what's your last name? Next bus out of here. There. Oh, I see my country on my...
Where's he? Chauncey?
Their mayor, Caspar Teals, his grandson, offered Cleaner a land deal for his plant. They see Cleaner Jr. and Dawson, his baghouse relative, exit a black vehicle in the area. Before Jack confronts KJ, Chris, Webster, and Dawson, AJ Simmons, he begs mostly to keep his seat warm. He approaches them and asks what they would want. According to KJ, he read this morning about accusations made against Jack Reacher outside of Baghdad. Somehow, the really severe allegations simply vanished, although He was eventually forgiven for the desert. KJ cautions him that Margrave is not so forgiving. Jack is instructed to guard his back before KJ and Dawson departs. When Jack arrives at the station to meet Roscoe, Roscoe informs him that dinner will not be held since a second body has been discovered nearby. Jack denies that Paul told him anything while they were confined, but Oscar goes outside to find out. Oscar asks Jack to accompany them to the morgue, but Jack attempts to flee. He was unaware that his mother had just switched it off. That's how his brother acquired that scar, he explains. They pursue Jack as he rushes away, trying to figure out why his brother was in Margrave. Roscoe needs to intervene and end the quarrel between him and Oscar. Oscar wants the truth and inquires as to why he is in Margrave. Jack goes on to add that Blind Blake is the reason he came to town. Oscar says he would look for an excuse to put him in jail once more. Oscar has gentle eyes, so Roscoe doesn't believe Jack would beat him up. She diffuses the conflict. Richard questions whether his brother informed him about Blind Blake for a reason as they leave. He questions whether there is anything he should be doing. Jack responds, "Find and kill everyone responsible," when Oscar asks what. Richard is on a quest to track down the people who killed his brother at the start of Richard's second episode. They travel to meet Paul Harbour after Roscoe persuades him to accompany her, but in reality he's out, so they meet his wife Charlie.
He didn't commit.
Something like.
I'll out for him in that awful prison. Criminal? Man's never so much as jail. Doesn't make any sense. Why?
Well, that's what we're here.
Conklin.
You're younger than Lucy. Oh, well, guess we're going.
Tally is the one in the glasses. Nice man. I still had him on some kind of seed.
Richard examines some of Paul's belongings to find Coogan grass on his shoe, well excused to use the restroom. Additionally, he considers what Charlie just informed them about her daughters, focusing on the fact that one of them wears spectacles. According to Richard, the spectacles were used as a telltale indication by those providing the orders, and Paul was the intended victim in prison. Richard says that man's sunglasses from the other cell and Harbour's were destroyed, so it seems they targeted the wrong guy. As part of the ongoing investigation, Richard will visit the crime site and follow Joe and the murderer's path. Based on the kill shot in the dark, it seems the shooter intended to be near and could have been a proficient marksman as well. Could the fact that Joe was employed by Homeland Security have had a role in the death? We will need to wait and find out. Another death shakes Margrave in the morning. Morrison, the police chief, was slain. The victim is actually nailed to a wall and the crime scene is gruesome.
Hey. Overshoes and gloves. Late.
Keep it professional, Jasper.
You'll find him during the autopsy. People Hubble workforce said they'd nail him to a wall. Think real hard before you finish that sentence. What I want to know is who else in Margrave.
Last episode, Hubble was forewarned that this is precisely what would happen to him. Morrison's balls are also gone, most likely in his stomach. It's possible that the cops are dishonest, particularly if the chief of police was corrupt and complicit in the murders. Richard advises the police not to bring in the FBI since a new chief in TL has called an emergency meeting. The greatest method to give those in charge of the shop some semblance of authority is to give them the impression that the ringleaders are still in charge. After Morrison passes away, Richard concludes that Harbour is most likely also dead. It's fair to believe he's been slain because he called Charlie late that night to inform her he was going to take care of this banking mess. The town meeting immediately becomes heated. Mr. Cleaner stands up and defends Richard, asserting that he's innocent and has a strong alibi. After Teal decides to become chief of police and charges are made. Teal appears to be one of the major dirty actors here, as he sent Finley out to chase his own tail and claimed Morrison's death had nothing to do with it. After this, Finley begins to change his mind and advises Richard to call the Atlanta field office directly and talk with his contact Picard. Naturally, all of this is done covertly, and after Charlie and the girls are collecting their belongings, Richard finally arrives at her house. By placing them under witness protection, Picard enables Finley, Roscoe, and himself to properly handle the matter.
Abroad were apprehended. You've been here a couple of days and you've already know they were South American military.
American military. Turns out Joe.
Drugs, guns, human trafficking.
30 won't call back till tomorrow, and by now Spivey's heard.
Since Spivey is thought to be the missing piece of the puzzle, Richard plans to go look for him. However, many assassins who chance to arrive first catch him off guard. Even while Richard is able to repel them, a forceful headbutt does result in a really serious gash above his eyebrow. In addition, he has a severe wound on his back. Roscoe advises him to get stitches, but he naturally uses glue instead. After a little respite, Roscoe and Richard decide to get a few beers in a nearby town. Due to the road being flooded by the rain that has begun to pour down, the two of them hitchhike at a motel after dancing for a while. When the two of them return to the town in the morning, they discover that Roscoe's house has been broken into. Although it is currently uncertain who the target is, Richard or Roscoe, a menacing carvings of the words "See you soon" on the door seems to suggest that this one is personal. Richard goes to Roscoe and says, "I'm going to need a gun," upon noticing it.
Rubber up. I'm really gonna need a gun.
Richard's third episode continues where we left off, with Roscoe furious and intent on exacting retribution. She's no longer putting up with bullshit, her words, after someone broke into her house. She gives Richard the revolver belonging to her family. They depart together for the time being, but Roscoe wants it returned since she values it. The second victim has been identified by Finley and Jasper. Peter Joblin, the victim, works as a truck driver for the South Freight Shipping.
Was there a specific
Fitting in the Margrave area.
guy that he put a stop to all?
No trail.
Why? It'll take me a day or so to copy it all.
Counterfeiters just cut out the middleman.
I tell him you found your house broken into and
Employment, appearance, or lifestyle choice of copying.
keeping bankers hours.
Couple of those bastards with me.
That's the spirit.
County. Figure if an ex-con was gonna.
Someone came after you? Just trying to figure out what the hell's going on around here. Something here, Sharon?
I doubt it.
With the exception of a traffic infraction, his record is also spotless. But after being represented by Zacarias Perez LLP, he was released from the accusation, which was changed to disorderly conduct. It's quite an upscale company, and it doesn't appear that they often hire truck drivers. Molly was found by a Secret Service agent. Before long, Beth calls and wants to talk to Joe. However, it is clearly not going to occur. She is devastated and starts crying when she learns of Joe's passing. Molly eventually gathers herself long enough to explain the situation to Jack. Joe was the director of the Office of Investigations, it seems. In particular, he oversaw a sizable anti-counterfeiting division. He was pursuing something that could have originated in South America. Joe was sent on a secret trip to Margrave as part of his duty, and he even gave himself the task, except for Molly, who was close to him. No one else was aware of this. She consents to maintain confidentiality while gathering the records required to ascertain the true situation.
Okay, I think I know what's going on.
What's going on here? This town, and you're worried about a dog.
Which we both know is far from reliable.
To your relationship with these men. If
First back on the road and keep the wheels of. I know you're only doing your. Is. I mean, the people of this town.
The group decides to maintain their presences with Roscoe at the station for the time being. Till is waiting for her when she gets there. He gives them a list of possible men to look at. She performs her role, but it's obvious that this is all a front. During this time, Finley finds Spivey's home address and visits to speak with her. It appears like nobody is there after breaking in, even though Spivey's Gadgets are primarily to blame for the mess. He finds the man's phone on the bedside table with many calls to cleaner, but police quickly enter and beat him up because they think Finley is a thief. Richard leaves in the interim to pay Zachariah Perez a visit at his workplace. He asks for job links his file without much delay. Perez quickly prints out the necessary information and gives it to the lawyer after threatening him with the phone card. The three of them ultimately get together again at Jolene's, a small eatery. Richard verifies that Cleaner Industries was hired to handle the shipping company while they eat together. Even Cleaner covered the tracker's legal bills. Spivey's numbers reading Cleaner, and this seems to suggest that Cleaner is the culprit. Richard is going to kick the Hornets' nest. Of course, Finley is at his side as they leave to Cleaner Seniors. Oddly, not a single security camera is visible outside. That's strange for sure, and when they are shown inside, Richard observes that there are several deer heads up on the wall, pointing out that this must be the creation of expert marksmen. I wanted to keep my driver on the road, so I got a good lawyer involved with jobbling. Cleaner says in his office he takes offense by their interrogation and says he has no idea what is happening. Cleaner really irritates Finley by implying that this evidence trail is pointless and that he ought to abandon it. However, Finley declines and issues his own threat, saying he must cease obstructing the probe. Richard's smacks are almost unbearable.
Maybe even a
Extra cash. Guilty as southpaw.
Richard is still determined to locate Spivey. He concludes that he has the secret to everything. When KJ arrives in his absence, he finds Roscoe at the gas station, agitating her and accusing Richard of murder. In Baghdad, he apparently murdered a number of people. KJ says he's only trying to look out for her, but Roscoe doesn't listen and leaves. When Richard finds out that Spivey has gone out with a few Spanish guys, he seizes the chance to escape ahead of them before they catch him. Richard creeps up behind the two Spaniards and shoots them dead as they examine the empty automobile he hops out of immediately before this. He discovers a bundle of cash in the pocket and reaches for the gloves he picked up in the bar. Regrettably, he also discovers Spivey's with a gunshot between his eyes in the trunk.
Hello, Spivey.
Richard's fourth episode opens with Alan Richardson's character Jack Richard smashing mobile phones and searching the victims' bags. He leaves a can of Skull behind and accepts a lighter from Spivey, Patrick Garrow. He stuffs Spivey's body and the other two into the truck. He must bend one man's leg back in order to do that. When Oscar Finley, Malcolm Godwin, calls to ask whether he discovered Spivey, Jack responds that it was a dead end. Paul Harbour hasn't worked at the bank for a year, Oscar confesses. Additionally, there may be a lead on Joe's rental automobile since a few hundred yards west of mile marker 97, a driver reported a burnt-out car. He affirms that the automobile is only known to those who require it. A little later, Jack brings him food, which Oscar declines. Oscar tells Jack that the automobile was discovered by a farmer who was looking for one of his pigs. It's clear that someone tried to conceal the car because there are no license plates. According to Jack, it could have belonged to his brother because Joe would have preferred an SUV for headroom. As soon as Jack looks at the vehicle, he understands that the fire did not originate in the gas tank or engine. They believe it was ignited there with an accelerant and match since the burn is heaviest in the middle and radiates outwards. Before they attempt to obtain a partial vein from the car, Roscoe Willa Fitzgerald joins them. Jack demonstrates to them an old-fashioned method of cleaning metal using ketchup and salt. He finds the vein using it. Oscar claims that in order to obtain quicker results, he will have Picard, Martin Roach, run the vein. Jack informs them that Spivey was discovered hidden in the trunk. After the South American arrived before him, the South Americans won't speak to him, even if he tells Oscar where they are. Jack claims there have been 8 killings involving Harbour since he arrived in town, while Oscar claims there have only been 7.
It was a hell of a lot. Not a problem. Trunk. My guess is Welty's your go-to, but when you travel...
Sounds like a good plan.
The 15th floor. No, I figured you'd call. You're breaking at least 4 laws I can think of.
You want to meet her just as much as she...
Stories about me. I do.
Jack claims that if he doesn't dispose of the body, state and local police will be swarming in the area. To keep the inquiry private, he must remain undercover until they discover Joe's killer. Roscoe pledges to watch Jack closely. She learns what Jack did to the victim's leg as she follows him to the car. She thinks Jack lied when he told Finley they charged him since she sees the exit wound on his chest. Jack maintains that he simply gave Finley the information he required. Jack wants to know whether she finds it offensive that he harms those who harm children. Roscoe declines. To dispose of the dead, they head to the airport. After dumping the automobile, Roscoe cleans it and takes a license plate. Jack observes a group of men unloading packages from a truck while he waits in the automobile. Upon Roscoe's return, Jack shares with her what Oscar mentioned regarding cleaners' involvement in chemicals, real estate, and trucking. He can't recall Oscar mentioning anything about farming. Richa believes it was a lot of animal feed, but she adds that is very common around here. They alter their car's license plate when they get to the motel. They enter and Jack requests a room on floors 3 through 7 if it is feasible. They are down to 2 queen rooms and a suite. Richa has a large sum of money. Jack confesses that he received the money from the individuals who wanted to assassinate him so they could get paid well to attempt as they ascend the elevator. Given that those men were probably collaborating with counterfeiters, Roscoe questions whether he used fake money to make the purchase. He claims that's not the issue.
Out of line, you're off the case. With due respect.
And I'm appreciative of that. So I have your permission to take this call. But I have some friends in the area.
But I do need to go and relay some...
I'm not.
Okay.
Knew he'd piss off the wrong person eventually.
Roscoe is advised by Richard to visit Joblink's address first thing in the morning in order to speak with his wife. In order to allow himself a little more time to get his shot off, Jack inserts the toothpicks inside the door hinges. In order to protect himself from being shot by a sniper in the middle of the night, he also pulls the curtains and moves the bed. Molly Beth Gordon, played by Laura John Korostik, calls to report that she located several Josie's case-related files. Roscoe sits down next to him and says losing relatives is a special form of anguish. She was old enough to recall every moment of her parents' deaths, but still too little to fully comprehend them. Even though Jack is still attempting to console Molly Beth, she is aware that he is in pain. She asserts that Joe is correct and that he is a kind man. Jack makes the decision to shower. If someone attempts to enter via the door, he tells Roscoe to shoot them. For romance, Roscoe takes a shower with him. Roscoe predicts that in the morning, Joblink's wife would object since her husband has passed away and there is no leads. They have a job to accomplish. Therefore, she says what occurred last night shouldn't affect anything. They pose as officers Welty and Rudolph and pay a visit to Mrs. Joblink, Nancy Park. They return to Pete Sr., Larry Peloso. To the kitchen surprises them. Despite a recent spate of hijackings at his trucking farm, Jack assures them that Pete is doing okay. She believes that the South Americans would discard the clothing bag and keep the suitcase. They discover the clothing bag in the garbage along with the message that makes reference to Jobley Singh's garage, Operation E, and Gray's cleaner file. As soon as the car comes up, the people inside start firing at them. When he shoots, Jack instructs her to run in separate directions. They flee from the car as he opens fire. Jack is pursued by the automobile even after Roscoe escapes and loses them. Before Jack shoots and kills him, Mateo makes his way through the sunroof. When the automobile gets stuck, the second man exits and pursues Jack. Richard soon tackles him after leaping from a neighboring roof. Following a short altercation, the South American takes his firearm and threatens Jack, accusing him of killing his cousin. Before Roscoe shoots the thug in the head, killing him instantaneously, he threatens to murder him. Jack gets slapped by her for forcing them to pursue him. She maintains that he is not a little child in need of his protection. Jack claims he was considering the fact that nearly no one he cared about was still in the world when Joe passed away. Jack questions whether they used parabolic microphones to listen in, since Roscoe doesn't want to think Stevenson is unclean. In any case, Roscoe gradually comes to terms with the possibility that Stevenson was responsible. To talk about what they have discovered, they decide to get together in an abandoned farmhouse. Jack followed his gut even though he knew Roscoe didn't require protection. As their parents find out that Joe is beating up a Brigadier General's kid, Jack Maxwell Jenkins and Joe Gavin White listen in a flashback. Bishop, according to Josephine Leslie Frey, has always been trouble, and her kid was merely standing up for Billy. When advised that he should be considering his profession, Stan Matthew Marsden responds that it is a dispute between children. They are limited in what they can do to Joe since he is a juvenile, but Stan will probably be punished by Bishop by being demoted, having his pay reduced, and being sent outside Okinawa. They understand that since Molly Beth will be in Tennessee shortly, they are unable to travel there. Jack has a PI he trusts with his life who can assist. Jack informs Neagley over the phone that his brother is investigating counterfeiting in Georgia. He then shares his notes with JW, which includes the Memphis EPA phone number. Oscar says they should leave as soon as the call is over, since Molly will be landing shortly. They attempt to determine whether they will arrive before Molly as they travel to the meeting location. Molly is there when they arrive at the station, but she doesn't ride the escalator. Jack advises them to separate because he thinks something is amiss. He jumps down to inspect the bag she had on the tracks after spotting it. He discovers Molly bleeding from her tummy as he dashes into the tunnel. He's holding her before the episode concludes. Molly refers to him as Joe. Richa, Finley, and Roscoe leave the train station without anything at the beginning of episode 5 of Richa season 1. Unfortunately, after calling the police, they had to leave Molly bleeding out. They cannot be held accountable for this after all.
Six months later, we're at the gap. According to your record, interrupting our lunch.
Let me ask you. It wasn't a rhetorical question. You're the kind of guy that knows things. Quickly get me in trouble.
And about Roscoe Conklin.
Before I drop you, KJ.
Richard sees the sad pouch laying on his side in the yard as he stops by the dog owner's house on the way back. Jack has shown kindness to this dog throughout the season, even giving it water from the dish. Richard ultimately snaps, and it's obvious that his owner doesn't take care of him. He gives the man a straight hit to the nose, then ties him up and takes the dog with him at least until they get to the shelter. Since both Joe and Molly have passed away, Richard is bearing the burden of the whole globe. He wonders why there is so much animal feed as he swings by the farm on his way out of town. In keeping with Paul, he also spots the same peculiar vegetation on the ground. While KJ is in a diner, Richard arrives at his table to ask some questions. Following a violent argument, KJ gets many fists to the face as retribution for his problems. But just as Finley and Roscoe get their weapons out, Cleaner Sr. arrives. Unfortunately, the diner's owner, incriminates Richard for provoking a brawl and Till dismisses Roscoe for lying and mingling the files. Cleaner refuses to file charges, which is the problem. He cannot have it as doing so will draw attention to his own company. Richard concludes that the gun box that Roscoe was handed could hold the key to this case. Upon inspecting the box, they discover a key which directs them to Mosley Barber Shop. As it happens, Roscoe had an entire box of data that Gray was holding for this very lobe. Mosley was compensated to conceal all of the 116 cattle. The animal feed follows from there. Turns out that Jack was correct after all. Now, state officials are supposed to examine the cattle when the number reaches 120. Since that odd number is slightly under that, all of that animal feed may be brought in without raising any red flags. All of this monetary contribution to the community seems to be used as leverage against residents. After all, if they were to purchase their allegiance, they would have to keep silent or risk losing their funding. Given that Margrave is connected to at least 6 states, it appears to be an excellent location for distribution. In essence, they may exploit this to evade any police activity. They also understand that Gray was obviously killed rather than committed suicide. Richa urges Roscoe to control her wrath as they go outdoors. A memory of him failing to do this, showing up to see a bully at their home without expressing regrets for his behavior, asserts this. In any case, Neagley calls to clarify that she has important information and she speaks in code once again for Richard to meet with him so he may provide it to her. The JW on Joe's message turned out to be Jimmy Dupree Wilkes, an EPA investigator. However, he was shot dead in his house. Since nothing was stolen from his house and the murder weapon had a silencer, the FBI conclusion that it was a random robbery seems a little unrealistic. In line with Joe's experience, the body was likewise battered after death. Now everything is beginning to come together.
That way, micro lacerations, which.
Damn right it.
I ain't got a license,
I'm right there, Pigpen.
Who's clearing? I still have questions.
You know what he did?
Nothing.
Been out of business for years. Not bankrupt.
The hell is wrong with you? You can't show me a small-time trigger puller.
In addition, a Memphis police officer named Alcoin learned about the inconsistencies in the Wilkes case. He was actually investigating it, particularly via reports of harmful pollutants. In any case, when Richard brings up the animal feed with Neagley, she shares her thoughts that it's strange. Neagley, this is why I like you. Roscoe looks over Gray's paperwork in the coroner's office and displays the images of his skull, highlighting the lacerations. Gray may have been struck by a blunt object as well, but the official record states that he struck his head. Upon closer inspection, Jasper notices tiny cuts that resemble diamonds. As soon as Roscoe arrives, she repeatedly slams his face. Furiously, Finlay ejects her from the building. The problem is that Roscoe will undoubtedly become a wanted woman if she remains in the area, so she will need to keep quiet for the time being. She instinctively steps in to take care of Charlie and the children. Neagley and Richard, meantime, come to know a few policemen, notably Alcoin and eventually under the moniker the Viking. Finley chooses to conduct an unlawful search after speaking with Neagley and Richard inside the police cruiser. Desperate situations need desperate actions. In relation to that, it turns out that the cop who is with Alcoin is unclean and tears after murdering his body while claiming it will be a clean death. At the end of the episode, Finley interrupts Cleaners after hours. He discovers Cleaner Sr. with a slash in his throat on his approach to the workplace. "You are not pulling the strings, I suppose," grimly he says. Richard informs Finley at the beginning of the episode that they know now the paid murderers are Venezuelan. He goes to the closest diving repair shop, which, strip cars for parts in the back but doesn't fix anything. Since everyone is familiar with the Bentley that Richard took from the harbors, he needs a backup ride. Richard gives the owner a few dollars to drive his beat-up minivan around town in exchange for having the windows darkened.
Me and my sister out is in cab.
Hank.
What?
Will do.
No. But I brought some backup.
Good. Keeping him busy for now.
I'm leaving you. In good.
In an enclosed space. She's a friend?
That's when I was in the...
When Finley returns to the police station, KJ accuses the chief detective of slaying the excellent cleaner reputation and getting his father dead. He is removed from the case by Mayor Teal, who also instructs him not to conduct an investigation into the cleaner offices. Both of them conduct a stakeout close to the cleaner cargo structure. Finley can't let go of anyone. Therefore, he wonders why Richard lets go of people so easily. He informs him of his wife's passing in order to hear his wife's voice and leave messages. He continues to pay for her cell phone. In order to escape it all, he accepted a job in Georgia. From cleaner, they track a truck and follow it to Tennessee hotel. They explore inside there and discover nothing. What's happening? They question. The two academics Joe was collaborating with are called Shocker. One has been slain. At 5 in the morning, they awaken and instruct her to head straight to the closest police station. Richa has a fascinating story to share when she arrives. She was one of the two scholars that looked into the impact of mass undetectable counterfeiting, or MUC, and the fact that 80% of the US money is in the form of $100 notes. Like Coke and some of that detectable pie, Joe believes that counterfeit US cash was being manufactured in Georgia.
I'll call Tennessee.
He wasn't shipping money out.
How did you know that? You didn't even look at your watch.
I'm sorry.
It's 5 a.m. This better be.
The bad news is we gotta keep.
At the FBI safe house, Roscoe shows her own well-reliving Packard. She informs Charlie that she barely made it out of the wreck when her parents perished. Raised by her grandma, she decided to defend herself by becoming a police officer. Naturally, Roscoe is aware and alert, and her sense is very sharp, and she spots two Venezuelan thugs observing their location in a vehicle down the street. They follow after her when they hear her using her foot to shatter a twig. As the rest of the Harbour family hides, Roscoe advises the family to flee, and now they are in the center of it. Roscoe shoots to kill after circling around. One is being shot dead while another is having a grenade knocked out of their hand. Then it explodes. Charlie comes clean the next day while they wait for Picard. She was always aware of her husband's activities. Charlie informs Roscoe that her husband was coerced into accepting the position of bookkeeper at Cleaner Industries. Harbour was transported to Venezuela via air. To test his knowledge, he completed a few activities. He transfers money for him successfully. Cleaner offers him a position right away that pays 4 times as much as he does today, plus an annual take-home bonus of 50%. Cleaner then informs him that he is now involved in the operation and that the activities he completed were extremely unlawful. To make things worse, he observes how they treat males who choose not to join their ranks. In front of Harbour, they murder and castrate a man. There was nothing he could do. Richard poses as a lawyer in the later moments in order to visit the professor. He sees a figure in the windows following him as he departs. He runs ahead of him as he turns the corner, then stakes as he turns around. He uses a bicycle wheel to break the man's arm. In a very quick stomp of his foot, he splits his ankle. At last, with the end of his tie around the villain's neck, he leaps from the fire escape.
Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson.
Reacher Season 1 Episode 7 opens with Stevenson and his companion Emma discussing leaving town and feeling anxious. Emma believes they should leave and start over because she is pregnant. Regretfully, the dark automobile from earlier arrives with a crowbar and 4 men wearing latex costumes. Richard meanwhile lands in Atlanta and is met at the airport by Finley. Richard reveals to his companion that he played hangman with an assassin while wearing a jockey t-shirt. His white t-shirt smeared with blood. He also reveals that there may be another dishonest official operating covertly that they are unaware of. The two are taken to the horrifying sight of the Stevensons' home after making a short appearance at Cleaner Senior's funeral and picking up Harbour's automobile at the shop. Both Stevenson and Emma are dead, facing each other and strapped to chairs. This murder is not like the others. Emma was tortured in front of Stevenson, as evidenced by the intentionally placed mirrors around them. Suggesting that someone believed Stevenson knew something, it's reasonable to presume that neither of them had any knowledge because they are both deceased. Till decides to dismiss Finley from his position and leads the two outside while brandishing his diamond cane. As the last officer in the station, Richard is left to go talk to Officer Baker, whom he doubts is the corrupt policeman. Richard offers his view on the situation and disparages Finley since he has an alibi. Richard thinks Finley could be accountable for the killings since he has been in Margrave during the whole time everything is going on and there is something strange about his tale. Naturally, Richard will break into Harbour's house and turn it inside out that night in order to obtain answers because it seems like he's lost his mind again. However, the joking t-shirt isn't going to cut it, so he must first buy some bright clothes. Richard then enters wearing face paint and full army camouflage gear. Richard obtains the inside scoop on the 4 thugs wearing latex suits that arrive at Harbour's house that evening while Finley is occupied offering Stevenson's parents heartfelt condolences. Dawson is one of them. After eliminating 3 other men, Richard nearly drowns after being struck unconscious with a crowbar. But after regaining consciousness, Richard reaches for his rifle and fires multiple bullets at his attackers. Richard calls Roscoe after the fight to inform her of his discovery. After discovering that all US $1 notes are the same size, Paul realized that he was providing Cleaner with a steady supply of $1 bills from cash-intensive businesses like casinos and payday loans. After then, these messages would be sent from all around the nation to Margrave. In order to remove the ink from the banknotes, Cleaner Chemicals appears to have created a solution, which leads them back to animal feed. The component is animal feed, and after being cleaned, the notes would be stripped, beaten, and reprinted to resemble ordinary $100 bills, a plan of widespread counterfeiting. After that, this note would be sent to Venezuela. Richard's next destination appears to be Joe's garage, which may provide some answers on this. He calls Roscoe while on the way, but not before informing Finley. But Finley sees a number of people coming toward his hotel room from outside. They have located him, and it seems that Finley isn't a corrupt police officer after all. Finley follows Richards' example, evading the attackers and scurrying to safety in his car. Naturally, he punctures the attackers' tires many times to ensure he is not pursued. It appears that another member of the clan is filthy, but Finley isn't. Neagley verifies to Richard over the phone that although the Viking has been dead for some time, his sidekick Picard is still functioning and banging around. KJ, Till, and Picard are all aiming guns at Richard and Finley as he comes up with him. He has fallen into a trap.
Try anything small.
Charlie! Give me your hands, give me your hands! Run! No. Get down, get down!
Finley, is that you?
This season finale of Richard begins with Richard being held at gunpoint in episode 8. The odds are not in their favor and it's 3 against 2. It turns out that the money in this counterfeiting scheme enticed Picard, and to make matters worse, Roscoe is now being kept captive. Their demands are conveyed through KJ, who is grinning and carrying a cell phone.
Or also, I suggest you figure it out.
Black coffee, peach pie. This scare you? Figured Big's behind. It's done in stages. Plus, Nobble's a golfer. He's played with it.
Fuck.
Unless Paul is returned to him, KJ will treat her, Charlie, and the children the same way they treated Morrison. They are not playing around. It turns out that the Coast Guard blockade is the true source of the problem, which explains why these men have been having problems for so long. Richard's assertion that Cleaner Sr.'s death was caused by Venezuelans, however, is wholly incorrect. Taking inspiration from the South Americans, KJ killed his own father and made it appear as though they did it. Additionally, KJ recruited Picard's colleague to go assassinate the agent in Memphis. KJ bears responsibility for both Molly's and Joe's death. It was Dawson who also kicked Joe's body. This clarifies the connections between everything. Till, on the other hand, is as corrupt as they come, and he seldom complains about cleaners funding the town. KJ gives Picard the order to go find Harbor while he is entrusted with keeping an eye on Richard's every action. Since he's the only loose end in this situation, he must be treated as such. Richard and Picard go together, stopping at a diner where Richard orders a slice of peach pie for himself. To keep his family safe, he also attempts to determine Harbor's whereabouts. Richard determines that Paul is at Augusta, 2 hours outside of Margrave. After consulting a map, Richard uses a fork to pierce the tire just as they leave the diner, which leads to a standoff when they are stopped by a flat tire. With a pistol in each hand, Richard informs Picard that they must both survive for the time being. Picard swears not to murder him. Richard has different plans. He kills Picard and flees to Augusta, where he quickly locates Paul. They return to the police station together, where Richard uses his vehicle to forcefully slam Baker against the bars of the jail, saving Finlay's life. Finlay sees Baker die just before they depart the station. The moment has arrived and the three of them cooperate to seize as many firearms and ammunition as they can. Neagley arrives where they are working and begins preparing for the last battle. They naturally come to Mosley's to devise their strategy for rescuing Charlie, Roscoe, and the children from Cleaner's warehouse. Richard lights a fire to divert the attention of all the thugs inside before the ultimate battle begins. While Richard, Finlay, and Neagley collaborate to eliminate as many Cleaner's thugs as they can, Paul's duty is to remove his wife and children from the center of the action. Naturally, this brings Richard to Roscoe and Charlie, whom he is able to save and assist in untying. There are a number of noteworthy one-on-one altercation here. Finlay and Picard fight. The former appears to have returned to the warehouse before them, having healed from his gunshot wound. That doesn't last long though, since Finlay physically slams him to the ground. Till and Roscoe face off together in the meanwhile. Given that what transpired with Gray, there is clearly animosity between them, and she ends it by shooting him many times in the head, including one in his eyeball.
Charlie! Give me your hands! Give me your hands! Down!
down, get down! Finley, is that you?
Richa is left to pursue KJ, who naturally talks like a real villain. This allows Richa ample time to pursue him, gain the upper hand, and ultimately kill him by burning. Despite the ensuing explosion, Richa leaves and hugs Roscoe right away as they share a kiss. The villains have been eliminated. In light of this, Roscoe affirms that Richa must remain in order to respond to some inquiries. Nevertheless, he tells Roscoe that he must keep going and that's not who he is. Richa advises Roscoe to run for mayor, but Roscoe plans to attempt to restore the community. Richa bids Roscoe farewell and then does the same for Finley, who is still spinning his ring on the dining table. His purchase of a piece of peach pie for the two is indicative of the newfound respect between them. The concept of not eating fatty food has been a sort of running joke between the two, and seeing Finley follow through on it demonstrates a change in his personality. Finley is returning to Boston. He is going to live his life in a proper manner now that he has quit spinning it away. In addition, he adopted the dog for himself and gave it the name Jack. As a symbol of letting go of the past and moving on, Richard visits the location where Joe died and burying his meadow just before he departs town. The first season concludes with the primary narrative resolved, but there is still plenty of opportunity for further sequels as Richard resumes its journey. As we record this, we are currently on Reacher Season 3. Reacher has been a good film, and even if the conclusion was a bit corny and formulaic, it still meets all the requirements for a fun action TV show. The last warehouse fight does a good job of completing all the major battles in the season, and there are some amazing set pieces here as well. If you liked this video, drop a like and make sure to check out the OK TV Today's YouTube channel where we have hundreds of videos like this. If you want to see our newest episode, make sure you subscribe and click on that bell so you'll get notification.